Do you ever feel like you have all these great ideas that go through your head all day, but you never seem to be able to turn them into a reality? The ease with which we are able to procrastinate and avoid getting any real work done these days has never been greater. We live in a hyper-complex society with absolutely limitless distractions and demands on our attention. If you're anything like me, then the temptation to watch every video or to learn everything you can about all the different topics that interest you may be very strong. But the thing is that if you are looking to create something better in your life and improve your circumstances, then you really need to get focused on something that you hope to accomplish or create. Whether that's getting a better job or starting a new career, going back to school, starting a business or a side hustle, or even just developing a new skill or a talent, if you really hope to make any significant progress, then there's absolutely no substitute for just being disciplined about sitting down and doing the work that is required. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with engaging with content that is interesting to you or that is educational in some way, but basically you just can't only be a consumer of media if you are really trying to create something better for your life. We're really fortunate these days because there are so many ways that we can monetize our passions and interests, but like anything else, it absolutely requires that you put in the time to make it work. So with that all said, here are a few of my best tips that you can start to apply right away if you want to overcome procrastination and the resistance that you may have to getting started. Tip number 1 is, most importantly, decide what is a worthwhile goal or aspiration for you if you haven't done so already, and then make a list of all the reasons why it is something that you feel is worth pursuing. Really try to be thorough and list as many of these reasons as you can come up with. These can be everything from all of the ways that you stand to benefit materially or financially, and how that will, benefit you and improve your situation or the situation of your family or those you support. But it can especially also include all of the kinds of more internal and emotional benefits that you would receive upon, a satisfactory attainment of your goal, such as, for example, feelings of accomplishment or competency, security, satisfaction, freedom, so on and so forth. Because all of these reasons are an integral part of your vision for the future, which kind of acts like a great attractor magnet that is pulling you towards it, and which constantly reminds you of why you are making all of the efforts that you are making towards your vision or your goal. Number 2, and this is another very important one, is that you need to set aside the time for whatever it is that you decide you need to do. Once you've gotten clear on what your goal or your desire is, then you want to intentionally decide on times that you have in your schedule that you're going to set aside towards working on them. If you have a fairly routine work-life schedule, then you should see if you are able to add any amount of structure to that schedule so that you actually can kind of carve out that space for dedicated work time. You really want to regard this time as sacred, which means consistently adhering to it day after day so that you always respect the fact that you have this time that you've set aside to do whatever it is you've decided you need to do to make progress. Even if it's just a few minutes a day, whatever you do with that time should definitely be strongly aligned with whatever your goals are. And you should know in advance that some days are just going to be more productive and fruitful than others. So it really is helpful to be accepting of that fact ahead of time. And honestly, just your ability to stay consistent with that and just keep showing up day after day and being willing to do the work might honestly be the single most important factor that will contribute to your long-term success. Now, if you find all of this to be a little bit of a challenge, then what I highly recommend is that you actually take an inventory of how you're spending your time on an average day. Because if you really are determined to make positive changes in your life, then you have to be honest with yourself about what kinds of activities or rituals are not contributing to that. Unfortunately, this is just the price of success and achievement. You might just be amazed at the amount of time that you can free up when you get more clear about the kinds of activities that are not serving you and that you are willing to sacrifice for your greater purpose. Another related tip that is so critical to all of this, especially these days, is to make sure that you silence your phone, put it in another room, and make sure you close out any unnecessary browser tabs that you may have open while you are working. The idea here, obviously, is that you want to minimize the possibility for frivolous distractions as much as you possibly can, because every ping and bling will just pull your attention away from what it is that you are doing, and in the long term, this is just fracturing your consciousness, making it overall more difficult to stay on task with what you are doing. So especially while you are working, you really want to resist that temptation to be looking at your phone and bouncing around to all these different sites and posts and things, because this is really only harming your ability to absorb new information and produce any kind of quality work. Now, the last tip I'll share with you here is especially applicable to those who do any kind of creative work, but of course it can apply to anybody. And that is, like, as you go about your day, as you get these little ideas or bursts of inspiration, you definitely want to be sure that you're capturing them in some way. Whether that means you have a little notepad and you're jotting them down, or even you have like a notes app on your phone where you're just recording these little thoughts, even if it's just a couple of words or a sentence. Over time, that's a practice that can really help you go a long way. Building up kind of a repository of ideas and material like this can really fuel your work at a later point in time and give you kind of the raw materials to work with later when you sit down and maybe aren't quite feeling as inspired, or you're kind of just drawing a blank in your mind. As we know, bursts of inspiration don't always last for hours. So it's a good habit to get into, to just start to capture those ideas as they come to you, especially if you know that they hold a lot of potential for further exploration and development later. So those are just a few helpful tips related to how you can beat procrastination and start getting more serious about doing the work that is required to build a better life for yourself and even for those that you care about and that you support. On a final note, the more consistently and habitually that you turn your mind towards some chosen endeavor and that you keep returning to sit down and do the work, I really want to tell you that the more inspiration, insights, and ideas really will occur to you that will allow you to go further in that direction. And what is more is that if the work that you are doing is really aligned for you, then it will not even feel so much like work, but kind of more like structured play, which really confers a sense of satisfaction and meaningfulness that can be so intrinsically rewarding and propel you to continue doing it. So that's all for this one today. Please give this video a like if you have found it helpful, and I always appreciate your comments and feedback, so definitely be sure to leave them. Finally, I do want to let you all know too that I do offer what I call hypno coaching services, which is like a form of life coaching blended with hypnotic techniques that make the experience even more powerful and transformative. So if you could use some help getting more clarity on finding your true direction in life and working through all the blocks and mental doubts and obstacles that are keeping you stuck and unable to move forward, then you can go ahead and click the Calendly link in the description of this video, and you can book a free strategy call with me today where you can learn more about how I can help you. So once again, thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.